Hi everyone, and welcome back to Season 8 of the Propcast. I'm Louisa Dickens, your host of the Propcast and co-founder of LMRE, the global PropTech recruitment and search consultancy. The aim of each episode is to introduce you to a PropTech innovator and discuss how their work has created a shift in focus when it comes to digitalizing the built environment. If you're interested in finding out more about PropTech or applying for a job in this space, or keen to know who the big players are that are moving and shaking the real estate industry, we have you covered. And we'll be bringing you an episode each week to connect you to the VCs, PropTech startups, and real estate professionals from around the globe. Today on the Propcast, we'll be talking to Alfred co-founders Jessica Beck, who acts as COO, and Marcela Sapone, the CEO, on how building management platforms are changing the way we live. Welcome to the Propcast, Jessica and Marcela.
Thanks, Lou. Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
Excited to be here.
For those who do not know Alfred was founded in 2014 by Marcela and Jessica. Alfred has grown to be a leader in hospitality, successfully rolling out a national resident experience and building management platform with hundreds of thousands of units managed in the US and also I think Canada. Alfred's mission is to create an industry shift in real estate, transforming renters into residents and apartment properties into neighborhoods. And on today's show, we'll hear about how Alfred came about, what product they've created, the value it provides to residents, and why they've seen such consistent growth, allowing them to be over, I think it's 52 cities and changing literally every month. What trends and changes they've seen across residents, because I'm sure pre and post COVID, they've seen an awful lot. But also, if I'm sure you've seen in the news, they have raised quite a lot of money. They have big plans, but they've also made an acquisition. So that's what we'll be going over. So let's get started. Who would like to go first of how Alfred came about? How did you both meet? Marcela, do you want to go for this one?
Yeah, sure. This one's an easy one. So sorry, Jess. I was very, very lucky in that I went to Harvard Business School and sat next to the illustrious Miss Jess Beck. We were in the same section, and we had a similar background in the fact that we were both working in management consulting and in finance, and had the experience of kind of working 90, 100-hour weeks. When we were in business school, our objective, both as individuals and personally, was to figure out if it would be possible to start our own adventure and build our own business and to find a co-founder. So we found that in one another, but we also found a shared problem, which was we were really driving in our careers and thinking about, well, how are we also going to be interesting people, have a family, be able to balance and really be our best version of ourselves. And a study came out at Harvard Business School the year that we were there. It was the 50th anniversary of admitting women to HBS. And the study came back and said that the majority of women, over 60% of women with an MBA, had dropped out of their career. And we thought that was really interesting because when something is the majority, it basically means that's like systematic, right? We reached out to a lot of alumni, both women who had left a career, their workforce, and women who, even people like Meg Whitman and Sheryl Sandberg. And the fun thing about going to that school is that people actually responded to us. And so we had this really interesting month of talking to a lot of women. And what came back to us was the folks who were able to make it all work had one thing in common, which was they got really, really comfortable with asking for help. And they got really, really comfortable with the idea of a team backing them up so that they could be the superhero version of themselves. And specifically, it meant delegating and being comfortable asking for help from a trusted source. And so what we were thinking about was, what do we spend our free hours doing? And are those things giving us a ton of meaning, or could we potentially outsource them to a trustworthy source? And what if we really want to solve this structural problem of our bigger mission is to really think about the world in a 50-50 equal way? And how could we enable women to stay in the workforce longer, to put it simply? And to do that, you basically need to build help as a utility into infrastructure. It needs to be a part of the way you live. It needs to be as easy as turning on the electricity or taking water out of the tap. And so our perspective was, could we create a business that would put groceries in your fridge, dry cleaning in your closet, packages on your counter, and have everything you ever needed at the tap of the button? And could that be included in our rent? because it's the biggest check we write every month. And fundamentally, if we had a home that really anticipated us, we would have a shift in our ability to have more time and to have more headspace to focus on the things that really we love the most. So that's where the idea for Alfred came from. It was our own experience and it was a big mission. Yeah. And we've been on a journey since 2014, really learning a lot about how to make this dream of making help in infrastructure be a real possibility.
That's incredible. What was the first city that you started? Because obviously, like you mentioned, you scaled to 52. Where did this all begin?
Sure. So we were one of the, I think, few consumer companies that actually originated in Boston. And at the time, Boston was a great startup scene, but it had a lot of life sciences and healthcare tech going on. So we started, because we were still students when we started the business, we started it in Boston. And we built the company there for a year. And then we opened our next market, which was New York. And I'll share one sort of fun early stage startup story from this period of time. But there was a period, Lou, where we were students going to school at night and then driving to New York to run our business and like sleeping on friends' couches for like 5 days, driving back to go to school and running our Boston market. We did that for about a year. So we really did, start in sort of the scrappiest way possible and had a lot of fun doing it. But you are right, from what started in Boston and then went to New York, we scaled across US and Canada, and we're now in 52 cities and growing.
That's incredible.
Hi, I'm Anthony Slumbers from the Real Innovation Academy, home of the Future-Proof Real Estate course, designed to accelerate your real estate career. To learn more, please visit realinnovationacademy.com/LMRE for details and a 25% discount.
For our listeners, so our listeners are global, obviously a lot of them are in the US. Can you elaborate a little bit more about this product? I mean, I'm so down for it. My flat apartment is in London, and anything which I can get delivered or sort of outsource, I do to sort of try and balance obviously work, but also being able to, it's all about sort of ease as well. So I'm eager to hear a bit more about this product.
Sure. So what we do is really pretty simple. We just focused on the largest category and asset class in the world, which is housing. And we are taking that largest asset class and making it go digital. And what we mean by that is right now, many of us in the US and internationally, a lot of us are renting, and we're renting for longer. And that's both in these big apartment buildings, the flat that you live in and that I live in New York City, but also single family rental communities. And ultimately, these are huge $100 million projects. And once you build an asset, you need someone to manage that asset. And what we do is we take technology and we take a resident first, very consumer perspective and lens. And we are disrupting the way that traditional property management happens in multifamily and single family build to rent communities. And
amazing.
From a resident perspective, it's amazing because now you have everything you ever needed at your fingertips in an application that allows you to buy services, to pay your rent, to book amenities, to book the Peloton, to book the workspace, to request your packages be delivered to your front door, to complain about something going wrong in your apartment and get a speedy answer to it and be able to rate whether it's been done well or not. Really taking, we're so used to technology in every aspect of our lives, but real estate has been very resistant towards tech enablement and is really quite behind relative to other categories. But it's so exciting because it is really the largest asset class. And now coming out of COVID, there's a huge embracing of technology and also really thinking about the consumer as the asset, not just the building itself.
Of course. And for the audience listening in, Alfred has some pretty impressive strategic partnerships. You'll know them. It's Brookfield, it's Hines, it's Related, it's RXR, Greystar, Jamestown. Those not in the US, again, you know who Greystar are, and Brookfield and Hines. So obviously these are some huge partnerships. Obviously you've generated huge amount of business, which you can obviously grow and develop across all these cities. I'm sure you're, maybe international expansion as well. How did you go about bringing on your first massive client with an operator? It's no easy feat. I didn't know, obviously, who's more sort of focused on the business development sort of strategy side. Is it Marcela? Is it Jessica?
So when you're starting a business, the fun thing is that you get to do a lot of different jobs. I would argue that both Marcela and I have probably done every job in the company. And particularly in the early days, when we were first learning about the real estate industry and partnering to figure out how to work together, it was a full team effort. But it is true. So our approach in working with the industry and gaining our first customers was really one of partnering. We were very, very lucky that there are great companies out there, particularly in New York, who saw where the industry was going, who saw what the resident experience could become, and wanted to partner with us. So our first big customer in the space was Related Rentals in the US. And we worked with them in all of New York and then across LA, DC, Chicago, and a whole host of other markets. And the thing I would share, and advice for founders that are kind of in this space, is it does take time, but if you build a relationship and you go building by building, 1 building to 10 buildings, you not only build a great relationship, but you actually get to build a great product, and you get to learn and work with your customers to bring something to market instead of just saying, this is the answer and I want you to buy it. We always took a partnership-oriented consultative approach. And I think that's one of the things that our partners have valued the most.
Yeah, I think if you obviously get one of these huge clients as well, and it's all about developing that client, because they have so many, so many apartments you can go to. And this element of customer success, there's more businesses like yours. I don't know as anyone as large as yours have developed in this market, but obviously it's all about making sure no one goes to a new competitor, the customer success piece. What are the major trends or differences you might have seen between, say, Boston or New York in terms of what a resident is looking for? Is it similar in sort of the major cities? It might be different to maybe down south. Who's up for this one?
Well, that's a great question. In the early days, it was so distinct. And I'll put it simply, which is in Boston and New York, one of our biggest categories in the service marketplace in terms of time-saving services people were using was dry cleaning. And meanwhile, in San Francisco, you had absolutely no dry cleaning. And that's reflective of the demographic and the tech startup scene. You're not wearing suits over in San Francisco. So there are these kind of, market by market service differences. For a while, we used to say that in Texas, pet care was our largest category. But over COVID, that was the fastest growing in all markets. And what's happened in the last 3 to 5 years while we've been building the business, there's been a tremendous amount of change in the industry. People really think about these doorman buildings and the luxury buildings and services as a New York phenomenon, but that has changed immensely. And if you look at all of the top cities in the United States and the second tier cities, this concept of Class A luxury rental properties, they are everywhere. And to the tune of 40 million units in the United States are multifamily rental buildings. What's really interesting is that the kind of modern consumer actually has a lot of similarities and some really universal needs. And because the category has been so far behind from the resident's perspective, we're talking about portals that show you that you have mail in your mailbox on a screen that looks like a bus transit system that's designed 35 years ago. There has been very little evolution and very little app-based anticipatory, very few things that are using IoT, hardware sensors, or any AI whatsoever to actually anticipate you and know, for example, you've moved in 30 days ago, which means you're probably due for your first cleaning, and there's probably some issue going along with your air or figuring out your Wi-Fi. Let's get ahead of that and ask you at the perfectly right time if we can help you with something. And that's based off of thousands and thousands of residents moving into that building and us learning over time exactly what to ask, when to ask it, and how to ask it.
Yeah, I guess this also ties in quite nicely to a question about, we'll talk a bit about your massive raise you did in, it was March, which those listening was 125 million, which is considerably more than, I think, was it two other raises you did of 40 and 42? So 125, I mean, it's huge. But at the same time, maybe just after, you also acquired a property management company. So this is obviously a completely added service included into Alfred's product. Is this because the residents asked for that to be serviced in their apartments, or what was the whole sort of reasoning behind it, and what's the extra value you're going to generate?
If I take a step back, one of the things that we learned along the journey is if you really want to change how people live and you want to do it past the front door of their home, you need to be much more connected than you would guess. So if you want to start to build an anticipatory home, you also need to be connected into the building. And that's because if you're living in a rental unit and you want, if you have a maintenance issue, you need to be able to submit that, and you want to do it in the same way that you make a service request. So what happened is we realized in order to really deliver the product and the promise and our mission, we had to become much more integrated into building operations and create an end-to-end user experience. So what our platform, our technology platform does is it allows a resident to look for a home, lease a home, move in, set up their entire lifestyle, not just their services, which includes paying their rent, submitting a work order, booking an amenity, putting their home services on a routine and automatic, attending, a local small business offering. And as part of that, to really deliver on top of that platform, you need to have a consolidation. We learned that in this space, there's so much fragmentation. There's fragmentation on the technology side, there's fragmentation on the services side, there's fragmentation on the operator side. And what that meant is not only was the resident having a terrible experience because they had to go to 20 different tools and 15 different companies to get everything done, but it meant that the operators had to manage 20 different tools and 15 different companies, and owners didn't have one-stop shopping for everything they needed to run their properties and deliver the kind of resident experience that they both wanted, but also is value accretive. So the big aha was this space is extremely fragmented. There's no single platform. And there's a huge opportunity to put all of that under one umbrella and deliver a one-stop shopping, fully integrated experience. And when you do that, the residents happier, the operators are happier and more efficient, and the owners actually have more fall to their bottom line. So the sort of driver for our capital raise and our acquisition was understanding that you can really only build the best product and deliver that product if you have an end-to-end solution like ours.
Amazing. Marcela, is there anything you want to add to that?
The only thing I would add is, when you start a business with a mission, you're really on a process of learning and evolving. And we started the business when we were 26 years old, and we've grown and changed a lot as well. And so we started with a really simple concept. We wanted to have a home management service, and we built this incredible relationship with residents, one of trust that I don't think any other brand in history has done at the scale that we have, which is to earn the right to enter through the front door as a member of your family week after week, and to take things off your plate and really have a view of what your day-to-day life looked like. And I think starting with that relationship and really understanding the consumer and having just an enormous amount of empathy for what works and what doesn't work, and just how busy we all are, and we're moving all the time, and the churn in the buildings is really high in terms of both the on-site team and the residents. There's just so much change. And what we felt is that a lot of these buildings are starting to feel really sterile. And there's just what could we do from a personal perspective, moving just from home management and the services that make your home work to thinking about building management and all of the stakeholders who are in a community. How could we make these jobs more fulfilling by helping them do higher quality things through technology? How could we think about wellness and programming events and the community around a property to activate and create a sense of place and placemaking? And that's the power of technology. It gives you the ability to change the way that current systems are designed and to create efficiencies that allow you to offer new opportunities. Like with the time that we're saving you, here are new experiences that you can have that are rewarding, meeting your neighbors, learning about new things, like genuinely cultural and interesting things, not just coffee and bagels in the morning. We've evolved the business to really think about it as a platform serving the entire residential living space? How can we make it better for all stakeholders and make it a win-win-win experience? And to do that, you have to not only be a technology company, you also have to understand what it means to be a real estate company and to be an operator. And so we purchased a management platform that manages $7 billion worth of assets, 30,000 units in the Sun Belt, in Atlanta, Florida, and the Carolinas. And they're just these incredible operators that deliver these incredible returns to owners, but they also had incredibly happy residents. And so when we were looking for a partner to bring into the company and say, look, what we want to do is we want to bring the DNA of a technology company and kind of mission-driven, oriented, female-run business with a real estate company, and let's go change the industry together, having this DNA of technology and a real estate company. That was the real intention. And because the numbers make sense by adding technology to old school management, we were able to raise these funds in such a significant amount of money to be able to do this M&A strategy. So I think the space is really excited for the change and receptive. And that's been an evolution too. You know, when we first started, there was a lot of pushback. There was even like animosity towards what we were doing. There was fear that we might take people's jobs, and the industry is really turning. And I think we've been in it long enough that people are like, all right, we know Marcela and Jess. They work really hard. They mean well. And you know what? They've learned a lot.
And in terms of how long a resident stays at an apartment, obviously, I'm sure it changes from the US to the UK to different areas. But is there any sort of data or stats you could share with us about, you know, increasing? Because surely if someone loves where they're staying and it's all easy peasy and, you know, everything's sorted for you, surely it increases tenancy length by quite some time.
What's been fascinating is, you know, I think the average in the US, at least, for annual churn in a property is about 45-50% a year. And if you're a consumer business and you think about it that way, and you're churning 45 to 50% of your customers a year, that means you have a lot of, you know, opportunity. And what we found is when you put community in a building and residents start to participate and their lifestyle starts to get automated, and they're ultimately renting a lifestyle and access to the community where they take meaning, they end up staying longer. So like that makes a lot of sense. And the data proves it out. In properties where we've been, you know, operating for some time and we've delivered that integrated offering, we increase, you know, the renewal rates for our partners by 5-10% at least. Wow. And that's significant because that really reduces costs, and it also makes their community more enduring because you have more consistency of the people who are there staying longer. So again, it really is a win-win for both the residents and the operators. And I think it helps make healthier neighborhoods and healthier communities as well.
Definitely builds communities. There's also with them, there's so many digital nomads out there, especially since post-COVID. I can imagine obviously lots of tenancy lengths have produced because everyone's just living wherever they can, you know, in Airbnbs or whatever. But if you can provide like a proper community, a lot more people are going to stay there. So I'm not surprised your old partnerships are increasing and they're loving you.
Hi, this is Vic Vectorman from Blueprint, and we are excited to gather the leading innovators from the built environment this September 12th through 14th at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Don't miss seeing over 2,000 of the biggest names in real estate tech across 3 days of high-level discussion and high-value networking. Check us out at blueprintvegas.com.
Now, it's something we haven't touched upon yet, and it's obviously important to me as a female founder. And it's also not often I have two female co-founders on this podcast either. So any sort of advice you can give to other female founders out here? There's obviously stats out there. You've obviously raised a huge amount of money, but Crunchbase reported that women-led startups received just 2.3% in VC funding in 2020, and the highest it's ever been, which is just before we went to pandemic, was 2.8%. So not that much difference. You've obviously been extremely successful, and it's not been easy at any point, I'm sure, but you've obviously achieved this huge amount. Is there any advice you can give other female founders out there looking to raise? And then the next question, which I'm going to ask, is obviously, how do you support, you know, your growing team and to obviously grow and develop in your business? Because you've both done that. You've gone through everything. But I feel like people don't talk about this enough, or actual sort of initiatives and also personal experiences. So maybe, God, sorry, it's a big thing. You can tell I'm quite passionate about it. Let's start off with any advice for other female founders out there.
I'll kick it off, and I'll say that I think a perspective Jess and I have always had along the way is to try to almost ignore the fact that we're female founders. We had like a rule. We would never do female only panels or raise and go out and say female led companies raising X amount. We tried to just really focus on the business and the fundamentals of the business. And that I think helps a lot when you're, kind of approaching things and here's the math, here's the financials, here's the business. It's just fundamentals, and really focus people on that in the investment community. The second thing is to just have an extreme level of patience and a level of acceptance that there's a lot that has to change, and you're pioneering, and your worldview might not be exactly where the world is yet today. And that you almost have to show up to work doing maybe, let's even say, double what a male counterpart might have to. And if you get frustrated or resentful about that, it can be a really frustrating experience. And the reality is, if you can zoom out and say, look, you're pushing water upstream for a lot of people and making it easier for a whole other generation, and accept that gracefully and kind of surrender to the fact that this is just the reality. The market is what the market is, and it's changing and it will change, and you are a part of the change, but just to stay patient.
Jessica, is there anything you want to add to it, or we can go on to, how you're sort of supporting, I guess, your workforce, across all the cities and in your offices?
Yeah, I'll only add one thing, which is being a founder is hard. And I think the thing Marcela and I have come back to many times, yes, we're two female founders, but you also have two of us. It really is a team effort. So whether you have a co-founder, whether you have an amazing management team, this is something that is a full body sport through every type of business cycle, and is, best served, I would say, in partnership and as a team. And Marcela is a tremendous partner and tremendous person to do business with. And I think when you have a trusted relationship and you have a great partnership, whether you have to go up against the adversity of building a business, which is hard, or building a business and being a female founder, it just makes it that much easier. So I would say find a good support system and type of partnership for yourself, regardless of what the kind of leadership configuration is. I think that's really, really important. You can't do it without help. That was the whole premise of why we started this. So build that into the work that you're doing.
And in terms of, you mentioned early in the podcast, you both have done nearly every role in your business. You've done that. You've done the hard work. You've led by example. What's the key thing to developing people, but also retaining them? I know that we saw the Great Resignation. We have a potential recession, maybe a bit of a tough time ahead of us at the end of the year, or so on. So what I'm seeing is that more people now coming back to work. They're a bit nervous. They think that, right, I kind of probably do need a job. But then equally, you want to retain your best people, which is so important. Like, why would people don't want to lose good people integral to the culture of the business and obviously the further growth? So what's your big sort of any advice to people listening in about looking after people and developing their skills further?
Look, it's one of those things that's not easy, and the whole market, and I think just all of us on the planet are at a point where we're taking really big step back to look at and evaluate our choices. And there's been a reshuffling of where people are putting their energy and the careers they want to be in. But I think the one thing that is extremely clear and has been clear the entire journey for Jess and I is that connecting back to your mission and having incredibly clear set of values that you make your decisions by, and being as insanely radically transparent as you possibly can, because it's not always going to be perfect. You're going to be growing. You're going to be at times making mistakes. You're going to be learning. It's a process of failing up. And if you can be vulnerable and honest, but always clear on what that North Star is, that I think gets you halfway up that mountain of retaining and attracting the best talent. And then it's also being really empathetic and personal with each member of your team and understanding what their goals are, their personal and professional goals, and kind of working backwards from the endpoint of what they're trying to achieve. Because if people know you're making that personal investment and then in return asking them to show up for the team, for the company, and to drive real outcomes for the team and for the company, there is, I think, a mutual pact that is very special. And if you're not having those personal conversations to really understand people's needs, desires, motivations, and how those change over time, then it's hard to stay aligned with the team and with your talent.
And the thing I would add is like Marcela and I, we work for our team, right? So you can have two different philosophies. You can have an org chart with sort of the quote unquote leaders at the top, or you can have an org chart with the leaders at the bottom. And our view is we work for our team. So our job is to understand what do they need? What does success mean? How can we provide better tools, resources, support, and help them on their overall journey? Like not everyone will stay at a company for 10, 15, 20 years. That's okay. But for the amount of time that someone comes and works with us, how can we help them get where they're going to go and leave them, quote unquote, in a better place than when they walked in the door? And I think if you take that mentality and that perspective, it's really important and impactful.
Yeah, I think, also building on what Marcela said about checking in, seeing how people are doing. I think so many businesses, when they're sort of scaling up, they're so busy, they don't think they have enough time to check in, which is so important. I mean, I've done it as we've grown as well, and maybe realized a bit too late with some people that, the organized chaos isn't for everyone, and it's about sitting down, working out how you can develop and progress them. So I think we've all made a few mistakes, as you do, but you learn from them. Now, the final question, ladies, before we go on to the final part, the LMRE part, is obviously you've raised, you've acquired. What's sort of next for Alfred? And any sort of predictions, or what does the future sort of look like for Alfred coming up? Marcela, maybe you want to go first.
Yeah, I think it is slow and steady, continually leading the category forward to become the leading brand in residential, and to really work with all of the stakeholders in our space to move the industry forward. There's so much work that has to be done. And in the early days, I think a lot of what you're doing is it's like there's hype and there's flash and there's marketing and it's getting people. And at a certain point, you got to run a really great business. And it's going to be a tough, I think, next year. And as long as we're continuing to add value to all of our customers, whether it's the resident, the operator, or the owner, we're in really good shape. So it's just staying true and continuing on this upward ascent until we really think we're going to be the category killer.
Awesome. And Jessica, what about you?
Marcela said it perfectly. Slow, steady, and wide reach.
It's very refreshing and good to hear a business that is saying slow and steady. I think quite often it's like you said, to scale, and it kind of gets a bit crazy. I was doing some research the other day. Can you believe it that some of the biggest companies in the world didn't exist 30 years ago, the likes of Facebook and Uber? On the other hand, real estate is a total juxtaposition, being the oldest asset class in the world. We often hear about the property industry being a slow mover, and the need for PropTech is clear to improve solutions and take advantage of the data being gathered. We saw $21 billion in investment into PropTech in 2020, and it was predicted a further increase of 25% in 2021, which has already been surpassed, which means there'll be plenty to talk about when it comes to the innovation of the built environment. EY reported that 53% of real estate owners think that they don't have the in-house talent to adopt technology successfully. Without technology-minded talent and leadership, the implementation and widespread adoption of your product might be proving tricky. If that is the case, we are here to help. So head to our website, lmre.tech, and we can find the right talent for your company's needs. Right, we've gone way over our usual sort of wrap half an hour podcast, but let's finish off with the final part. It's the LMRE part, and we'll break it up. So the L is touch upon a main lesson you've learned. M is mention anyone or a product, service, a shout out. R is what's been the most rewarding aspect of working in PropTech in this space. And E, what are you most excited about? So Marcela, do you want to kick us off with the main lesson you've learned?
There's so many lessons. Every day I'm not perfect, but I try to keep a little bit of a captain's log and to reflect on the things that I'm learning. And yesterday in my journal, I wrote down first things first. And for me, the lesson here is we have so much to do and we're so ambitious and so exciting. But the way I would describe building a business is you're drawing a picture and you draw the outline of that picture. And then you have to start and you color in like one finger on the hand. And once you finish that one finger, you go to the second finger and from there, the third, and then you're drawing the hand. And oftentimes, we're attacking a huge category. We're doing too many things and you just continually need to come back to focus on the one most important thing. It can only ever be one most important thing. And to take the time to really get clear on what that is, get that, knock it off the list, and then move on to the next one. So one line to-do lists and first things first. In terms of a mention, why not give a shout out to our friends over at Dorkey and John Fagan, who built an incredible business in leasing as a service. We've really enjoyed getting to know that team. What was the next one?
What's been the most rewarding part of working in this space?
I think it's really the built world is one of the most tangible, real, and incredible. We're taking things from a piece of paper and turning them into something that you can engage with and interact with, and that no one person could really do with their own hands. And it's just a testament to our ability to come together and innovate. Ultimately, you're always your team. It always comes down to that. So I think real estate really shows you the power of humanity when we come together. And that's really exciting for me.
That's so nicely put. The last one is, what are you most excited about?
I'm excited to get through 2022 and 2023 and be able to reflect back and be proud of making it through a pretty challenging market with lots of ups and downs and twists and turns.
Ladies, I think 2022 is going to be your year. Don't worry about it. Right, Jessica, keep it to one lesson that you've learned.
Sure. So I think the main lesson is when you're a founder, you're really kind of the captain of a ship. And we've built this business for about 7 years. We've gone through all sorts of seas, so calm seas, stormy seas. And when you're going through a calm sea, you think everything's going to be great and fine, and you're going to be in the promised land tomorrow. And when you're in a stormy sea, you're pretty sure like the world's going to end and, the ship may capsize. But the real lesson is to realize you're always in both a stormy sea and a calm sea, and to keep both of those in your mind and your experience at the same time. Because when you're going through a stormy sea, you'll know that you're going to get through it and you're going to get to the other side. And when you're in a calm sea, you're preparing because something will happen and it's, going to be kind of the next challenge ahead. So I think keeping both in mind is really important and gives you the perspective to kind of go build the category killer you want to build. So in terms of shout outs, I want to give a shout out to our whole team. And when I say our whole team, I mean even the folks that, started with us 7 years ago and our kind of seed stage team, from Christian to Lilla to the folks that are currently with us. This thing takes a village, and we are certainly only as good as the wonderful people that we have the privilege of working with. So we have a killer team across the country and they are phenomenal. And I hope they know it.
Yeah, but you're also giving a shout out to all the alumni who used to work with us and have gone on to start new companies and work at really incredible companies. They're part of it, the journey as well.
Absolutely. In terms of what's most rewarding, I'm going to echo what Marcela said. We work at the intersection of people and technology, and we get to put our fingerprint on it. And that changes how people live in super small ways. But if you change small details, you end up actually having massive ripple effects. And we're really lucky that we get to do that kind of work and continue to do that work and change sort of how the living category evolves and also how people actually live in their day-to-day lives, and hopefully for the better. And the thing I'm most excited to do is to keep pushing the envelope in the industry. Like, we've been trying to set the frontier and raise the watermark, and a rising tide, raises all ships, to continue with, I guess, my strange seafaring metaphors here. But I'm really excited to do that. I think innovation is hard, but everyone can really benefit from it. And the more that we do it, the more companies that start, the more ideas start in the incumbent industries, and the more good happens all around us.
Agreed with that. I've got one last question. I know North America is a massive market and you're already doing a great job of developing it. are there any sort of plans to come to sort of Europe or other sort of markets? Because we'd love to hear from you if so.
The short answer is 100% yes.
Love it. Okay, cool. Well, we'll watch this space. Look, Jessica, Marcela, it's been a pleasure having you on the Propcast. This is an extra long episode, but why cut good content? I'll catch up with you both after the show, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Propcast, and a big thanks to our guests and our sponsors, Cretech and Reamtech. Make sure you visit our website, lmre.tech, where you can subscribe to our newsletter, keep up with our industry news and events, or if you're looking for your next career move, it's all on there. The Propcast can be found on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube, where all good content is found. Whilst you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate it if you could spread the word and tell a friend about it, or even write us a review. And I'll catch you next week.
Making high-quality podcasts like this takes a lot of work. That's a fact. But not when you hire Copus. With our white glove experience, we handle everything for you, from guest outreach all the way through publishing and promotion. We handle it all. You show up to hold great interviews like these and build relationships with your guests. We take care of everything else. Podcasting is not just about the audience. Every podcast interview is the start of a brand new relationship. With a weekly podcast, you would build relationships with 52 ideal partners or prospects through podcast interviews over the next 12 months. Do you believe 52 new relationships could grow your business? We do. Why not contact me today, jason@copus.com, JASON @KOPUS.com, and let's talk.